Okay, and we are here today in the next episode that, and Darryl don't say nothing, the next episode of Point Black. I'm Adolphus Pruitt.
And I am the Reverend Darryl Gray. I look forward to these episodes. It seems as though every now and then we have an episode on this show. Or somebody has an episode on this show.
I'm going to say, we be episoding. Is that a word, episoding?
I think it could be. You know, they're changing words every day, man. Sometimes you never know. Somebody will say something, man. And particularly from place to place, town to town, region to region, everybody has a different word, a different way to describe something. But today on the show, we're trying to get an understanding, the difference between charters and constitutions and what is a government charter and what's the significance and what is the meaning of it. And you know, St. Louis is going through a self-examination or re-examination on its charter.
Is that what you call it?
Well, I'm being nice. I do have my boots on, though. I'm being nice. I'm just hoping I don't have an episode on this show. But they're going through this discussion on the charter, a charter that's over 100 years old, that began with the beginning of the city, to talk about, I suspect, how to make the city run better. And we are so privileged to have in our studio today the chairwoman and or chairperson of the St. Louis Charter Commission, Dr. Jazzmine Nolan-Echols. And Dr. Nolan-Echols, we are delighted to have you. Been following you for some time, your work. If you don't mind, could you just give us a little bit about your background before we start? As Adolphus would say, doing a deep dive into this whole charter experience.
Correct. So if I go to how I got here, I'm a third generation Penrose and College Hill resident of North St. Louis. My alder woman is Laura Keys. That is why I'm here. Some other alder women you may know is Tyus, who has been an alder person all of my life, all of my natural life, and has led the efforts and the works related to how and what my grandmother knows city government to be today. And that's both of my grandmothers. Outside of, you know, you always ask what high school we went to. I attended and graduated from Clyde C. Miller Career Academy. I'm also an alum of Harrisdale State University. And the concept of why I'm here, I was asked to be here by the business community in representation of what it means to be a business owner in the city of St. Louis and represent us effectively and efficiently. So I responded to the call of duty.
Pruitt, and I know Pruitt wanted to jump in. I looked over her bio, Pruitt, and how many businesses do you own and or operate?
I own 12. I manage and operate 400.
I just wanted to get that out there. I thought when I went through it, and Pruitt, I was going to try to do an intro. I was going to try to do an intro, and I said no.
You remember in Living Color?
Yeah.
Remember the guy, what's that little cover? The guy had 13 jobs.
13 jobs. 13 jobs.
Oh, but we don't have jobs.
We had 13 jobs. Yeah, then it went up and said, no, I got 22 jobs.
I got 22 jobs. I got 22 jobs. But like you said, the difference, you've got that many businesses.
Yes. My job.
And so I thought that was just so important. I mean, Pruitt, the caliber, the quality, the intellect that you bring to this commission as a member and as the chair. So I know Pruitt. Yeah. Pruitt, go ahead, because Pruitt does the deep dive. I try to keep things above the surface. He does the deep dive. He's the guy. He's the intellect.
Let's do it, Pruitt.
Wait, no. But let me start this way. The city of St. Louis is governed by a charter. Mm-hmm. This charter was put together in 17 whatever, whenever the city was founded. And over the years, there's been amendments to the charter. Most of the time, those amendments come from when some citizens or citizen group does an initiative petition process, or the board introduces a bill, it goes to the voters, and we change the charter that way. or somebody sues or something, and the courts would say, no, that you can't do that. And the courts, by law, change the charter based on their ruling. In this case, this commission, my understanding is, and I read the ordinance, but your understanding is, as a commission, this says that the charter basically, the ordinance basically says, well, we need to come, the charter's so old and antiquated and based on new technology and all this stuff, we need to look and see how we govern and bring it up to date. Am I right? Is that the charge they gave you all when you all came together, or do you see your charge being somewhat different?
I believe it's somewhat different.
Okay.
I believe after, I would say, a thorough analysis of the ordinance, I believe that was the surface of the intent from the group of all the people that put forth the ordinance. What we're finding now is that the charge is really to restructure the city government and how governance is being done for the city of St. Louis.
And you said we, so as a commission, irregardless, is that a word? Regardless of what?
I've always used the word. I've always used irregardless.
I get slack for saying it, but it's
but
whatever.
So outside of what the ordinance sort of says, as a commission, the ordinance gives you all the independence you need to look at your mission and look at the charter and sort of say to the citizens that as a citizen commission, we think that our charge or what we need to be looking at is this, and you're focusing on that. Is that safe to say?
Yes, that's safe to say.
Got it. And the other thing that jumped out at me, it says that the work to amend the charter should reflect the diversity of our city along a range of criteria: race, gender, socioeconomic status, geography, age, and more. So who, I don't know if we want to identify who, because I'm not trying to call anybody out, but is there socioeconomic status?
You're trying to ask who the poor folk are. Are you trying to ask who represent poor folk?
No, I'm trying. I don't care whether they're middle or lower.
Right.
I don't want them to be upper. I mean, so I think upper is represent. She got 400 businesses.
I'm looking at we got the board.
Cover.
And look at, and if I look at the board members, I'm looking at the board members right now. I'm like,
I'm trying to understand that social diversity. I'm just trying to, is it represented there?
I believe that it is.
Okay.
And so they made sure that each ward was able to appoint someone from that ward or from the zip code or whomever the case may be. So that is one way that was done. But we're all from totally different socioeconomic backgrounds, all of us.
So you're
Nobody's
saying
from the same.
So you're saying there's somebody who we could if we could identify, they would meet the status, the federal status of being low income, moderate or low income. Okay. I'm glad to hear that.
okay, and we're not asking any questions.
Yeah.
I
think that's important. And hold on, one other one. And is there anybody representing people who have been incarcerated?
Now,
Is there an ex-offender on there?
That I'm not sure of.
Okay.
That I'm not sure.
Because I think that would be important too, because of if we're looking at restructuring the city and justice, criminal justice reform, and all that stuff is important. So I was just wondering if they had if somebody who was recently or previously incarcerated represented on the commission, that would have been okay. I'm sorry, Darryl.
No, that's okay because if I look on there, I know I see a couple of people that probably are. No, I'm just joking. Let me not. They borderline. I see a couple of people on that borderline. So when
they ain't been in jail yet.
They ain't been in jail yet. They ain't got caught. Boy, that's what I'm saying. I mean, when we talk about the duties and the purpose, and I've attended one of your meetings and really interesting meeting. One of the things going in. And I think I said this to you, and I've said it to some other board members. This charter commission was suspect. To be honest, just going in. Some folk are saying, okay, we've had the charter, for all of these years. The why now? Why do we need this charter commission? Is the charter so antiquated and so outdated that we need to do this right now. People are asking, in the community, is this a political maneuver? Has this been established not to benefit the city as a whole, not to make government more effective and more efficient, but is this a political move? And people, people are still asking that question. Mm-hmm. And so you're the chairperson. Your feeling now. You've been involved since April. I think the April 4th, I believe the commission
applications and everything happened.
Right. So we're talking about April 4th of 23. And so,
Darryl, we're gonna let her answer that question right on the other side of this break. Yeah, ladies and gentlemen, we're gonna take a quick break. We'll be back with more on Point Black, and we have the chairman of the St. Louis Charter Commission in the studio, not on the phone, in BJ's studio. We are back, and Darryl, you were just in the grips of hitting the chairman with one of those. With one of those sidewinders.
Well, you know what? I mean, listen. I believe that Dr. Nolan-Echols is a person of integrity and transparency, and people want to know. I mean, first of all, you go to these Charter Commission meetings, and you don't have a whole lot of people there. I really don't know how much the community really knows about this Charter Commission, but those who are talking about it, and as I said, this was in the beginning. I don't know where we are. I do know where I'm at now, but, Chairwoman, people did feel that way. People are talking, and people felt that it was political. They read the newspaper, and they talk about the commission looks at abolishing elected positions. Mm-hmm. We're talking about elected positions. You're talking about really turning government upside down. So, like I said, he was suspect in the beginning. Did you get that sense? How do you feel it's going?
You want my feelings or my thoughts? Those two different things.
I want your thoughts. I'll get the feelings afterwards. If I'm not happy with your thoughts, I'm gonna ask you what your feelings are.
Exactly. That's why you gotta ask the order. Okay. All right. My thoughts are that when you start to see the same people on these commissions and on these boards that are in alignment with the same organizations and the same people and the same politicians, it's natural to have that kind of a response or reaction to seeing those people gathered. Myself and a few other commissioners are not among the individuals that are consistently or regularly appointed to commissions or boards or organizations and those kinds of things. So from that perspective, my thought is that this was not created with a political vendetta or agenda, with the selection of individuals. Mm-hmm. My face or my name is not associated to any means of anything with the city. I don't even do business within the realms of the city for those kinds of reasons. So I do not believe that every commissioner or the intent of this commission was by way of a political agenda.
Now, what are your feelings? Oh, I'm sorry. I wasn't supposed to say that quick. And I appreciate your thoughts. I appreciate your honest thoughts, but your gut feelings. I mean, you've heard from organizations. You've heard from the mayor. Mm-hmm. I mean, the mayor has made a presentation, has testified. Mm-hmm. So you've heard from elected officials. You've heard from police association, fire association. You heard from city workers. You've heard from some community people. What is your feeling?
Per my request for all of those interviews and that discussion, those debates, those I would say very informative perspective from people early on. After we received all of that perspective, I do believe that there is some political influence by way of some of the commissioners. Okay. I do believe and I do feel that there is some political influence, some perspective that is being forced or pressed upon the commission that is not of the people. I do feel and believe that.
How important, and I've heard you say this, but to our listeners, how important is it for there to be public participation? I mean, I understand that people were selected because they represent the diversity of the city. But I've heard you say that your priority is to make sure that the people's voice is heard. Do you feel that you've been able to accomplish that in the time that this commission has existed? I mean, a full sampling of the people's voice.
A full sampling of the people's voice, no. I have heard from all of the associations and organizations that I've either particularly reached out to or that we've had the Charter Commission staff to reach out to. Recently, over the past couple of weeks, every association, including fire, police, and everybody represented by civil service, has openly engaged with me, produced reports, given their insight, actually read the articles that impact or reflect them, and have given us documented response. And I greatly appreciate that. The individual residents of the city have not been able to be engaged with this because we haven't formulated what that educational framework looks like to actually inform and educate your average citizen. What is a charter and why should I care about a charter? Mm-hmm. Why should I care about the details of a charter without the political influence or the political agenda being a part of that process? The last April 15th meeting, I made it very clear not to engage the public by way of telling them what to vote for, what's going to be on the ballot, but actually educating them on what it means to have a charter and to be governed by a charter as a city. I believe that is the most important aspect of what's missing from the residents' perspective. Individuals that are part of public policy and public administration and all of this, you're very familiar and well-versed with what a charter is. But those of us who are not, mm-hmm. do not even understand the fundamental aspects of a charter. So I believe the first area of work is that for the residents. But if you bring things down to the actual proposed concerns that we've come to, those are things that you can communicate to residents.
All right, let me jump in for a minute. Just a little bit of homework. It says that the commission shall receive a stipend if requested, and it also says that each meeting they attend, we to provide child care if the person needs it, transit if they need it, and parking vouchers. So questions, and they says each voting member. Is every member of the commission a voting member?
No. Okay. There are several ex officio non-voting members as well.
Got it. How many voting, how many non-voting?
There are 9 voting.
9 voting.
And I believe there are 8 ex officio members.
9 and 8. Oh, and has anybody asked for a stipend?
No.
No?
No.
Interesting. What about child care?
No, not to my knowledge.
Okay.
And full disclosure, Pruitt, I think I need to let my listeners know one of those non-voting members I'm married to. I believe in transparency and full disclosure. You know, I won't say her name, but I think it's important. And I made a presentation at the Charter Commission, and I thought it was important for me when I made the presentation. I think the good thing is that my wife is a non-voting member, so there was no conflict of interest involved in it. So I think people need to understand, because when we look at this thing about conflict of interest, you know, conflict of interest is a big issue.
Well, I didn't see it in the ordinance, so we good. We good. It's not in the ordinance. It's on the ordinance, so we're good.
It's not in the ordinance. It is not in the ordinance.
Yeah, no, I read the ordinance. So, hey, now a couple of questions.
But I want to go back to your original statement about the budget, right?
Yeah.
It took me 3 to 6 months to get an approved budget from the city of St. Louis in the amount of $25,000. However, if you look through the ordinance, there is comparison to the Ferguson Commission that had millions of dollars for the work that they did, but it's nowhere near in comparison to what it is that we're doing here. A lot of what Ferguson Commission did was around research and storytelling by way of the crisis that occurred. Mm-hmm. This commission is not in alignment with the impacts or effects of what happened with the Ferguson.
I'm going to say, I saw that in the ordinance, the reference to the Ferguson Commission, and after I threw up, I wiped my face and kept going because don't get me started about the Ferguson Commission.
Correct.
And so thank God you know better too. But two very important questions. One, I'm gonna ask you one first and second one. The first one is, do you all feel obligated that because you come together as a commission, do you feel obligated you have to present something?
I don't believe it's an obligation. Originally, my recommended structure was that we were in work groups. And in those work groups, we all compiled ideas and perspectives related to what we read in the charter together. The ideal was collaboration and participation. That occurred early on. We had Anna Crossland lead the impacts of not participating in a work group. So then it put people into an obligation of having or choosing a side related to what articles or what recommendations we're going to participate in. Only myself and one other commissioner have produced individual recommendations.
Okay, and the reason why I ask because people come in. If you ask people, look at what governs you, and let us know if you think it needs changing.
Right.
People automatically look at it from the standpoint of what can I change.
Right.
Yeah.
I don't think anybody came to you and said, "Oh, we don't need to change anything." Maybe I'm wrong.
We've had some of that.
Oh, good. Keep their recommendations.
Keep their recommendations. I mean, and I'm like Pruitt because as I look at it, and I said, people have many degrees, but I mean, you and I, Pruitt, this is what we do every day. We are politically minded people. And I don't mean that from a partisan political, but just the understanding of politics and government and how it works. And so as I look at board duties and purpose, and it says by the 10-month mark, the commission will present draft changes to the city charter for public comment. But it also says by August the 15th, 2024, we're in 24 now, the commission will send its final recommendations for the city charter amendments to the city board of elections.
If they have them. See, it doesn't say.
That's what I need to understand.
It doesn't say if they have them.
But that's what I want to understand.
But that should be implied.
But you're right, Pruitt, and that's important. Is that a mandate, or is that a preference, or is that a mandate? Is it optional, or is it mandatory? I mean, I think that is important.
It is important. It hasn't been presented to us either way.
Okay.
It has not been presented to us as a mandate, and it hasn't been presented to us as a requirement. It is, however, an expectation, and it is a standard.
Okay.
Well. So let's be clear about something. The last time I think that we amended the charter, we did election reform on how we elect people, whether it's partisan, nonpartisan. Right. And one thing that came out of that was that this ranked voting. So you can have right now, when they're infinite wisdom, you can have two people run for office. Yeah. And since the two highest voters get to run again, one person can run and get one vote, and a person can run against them and get 1,000 votes. And then the person with the 1,000 votes had to run against the person with the one vote again because they're the two highest voters. Well, they're the only two highest candidates, and they're the only people running. And we're stuck with that. And I think it's ridiculous. And so that's the last time that we changed the charter. And help me, I don't know how much background you know about it, but I think the same people who came up with that are the same people who are pushing for this charter commission to change. So I'm concerned.
I'm extremely concerned. And listen, and Pruitt, you're right. If we're talking about developing something for political purpose or political expediency, or or are we going to make government better? You're talking about abolishing the elected comptroller. You're talking about a strong mayor.
So, Reverend, let's talk about that for a second.
Yeah, let's
go back to that and the whole conflict of interest, which I also believe people have to read and understand what a conflict of interest is. However, the abolishment of the elected offices is not the perspective of the total commission. That is a commissioner, using that particular word. In my analysis of all the charter reform for the city of St. Louis that has effectively failed, it is because of terms and strategies and approaches like that. So half of us are not in the agreement of abolishing things and totally derailing or dismantling things without the total understanding of what that means for the city.
Right.
So that is still a discussion. That is not a determinant. We have not decided on that. We have not voted. We have to vote twice on recommendations for them to be proposed and put onto the ballot. That has not happened for that particular position or that particular recommendation related to abolishment of any elected offices.
Okay, I mean,
But, yeah, and that's good. But the concern is that some mofo
So, I got my boots on today.
said, listen, I think this is a good idea.
I know.
I'm dying to know what was the rationale they had behind
know.
it.
So let's talk about it, because we've gotten other. So I'm a researcher as well. So in looking at all 50 states, and I came down to 12 cities that have the population or similarity close to the city of St. Louis. No city has this many elected officials. We
Gotcha.
are the only city of few cities that has 3 or more elected offices.
And we're not talking about just alderpersons.
No.
We're talking about we're talking about
We're talking
treasurer.
yes.
Recorder
wait a minute.
Comptroller.
Wait a minute. Not to cut you off. Let's be clear. Because the state offices, the charter does not impact. Am I right or wrong? The state office holders.
It could.
It could, because
Yes.
the state office holders, when you say elected
Right,
officials,
right.
even every county has a treasurer, recorder of deeds, and all the
Yes,
other stuff. So those are county offices. Those are not city offices.
We have county offices in the city of St. Louis, where the city of St. Louis should have those offices.
Yeah, because it's a city and a county.
Correct.
Yeah.
Right.
Meanwhile, there are no city of St. Louis reflective elected officials in the county. So the issue is, and what we've gotten letters and letters and letters about, the Board of E&A pertaining to how the elected officers are on that board and how that impacts the city and how it operates. Same thing with the president of the Board of Aldermen being elected. Same thing with the treasurer. Same thing with a lot of these offices that are, in fact, elected in other cities. They are structured departments, not elected officials.
And so go ahead. I was gonna, because I mean, when I look at it, the Board of E&A, and we're stuck on this because that's my understanding as I listen and talk to people, is that with in our case with a Board of E&A, and you got 2 out of the 3 have to agree. What they're saying is that what the argument is that with a comptroller on that Board of E&A dealing with budgetary issues or establishing the budget, it doesn't allow the mayor to be able to kind of negotiate and do the horse trading that he or she may want to do with the legislative body. It puts somebody in between the executive branch and the legislative branch, and they're trying to dismiss that in between.
Yes,
To make- and to them,
but the
to make it
controversy
easier.
is,
Okay.
why is it an issue now? It hasn't been an issue for 100 years.
And
So that is the problem that we're coming up against from the people. The people want to know, well, why are we dismantling now? What are we making room for? What is the need for it? What's the purpose for it? And we're looking to hopefully have some of the commissioners that are pushing for the abolishment, quote unquote, to answer to some of those concerns.
you mentioned that other cities, and you said the size of St. Louis, and see, the fact that we lost population does not necessarily dictate the size of the city, because our footprint is the same, and hopefully we get population back. We'd never be at 900,000 people again.
No.
I don't believe that. But Chicago, Philadelphia, Houston, Boston, Phoenix, Detroit, San Francisco, Dallas, San Diego, Seattle, Washington, all of their governments are structured the same as St. Louis, especially as it relates to mayor, comptroller, and the president of aldermen or the president of the council. And those cities, I didn't name a city that could not compete with St. Louis whatsoever. And those cities function fine with that structure of government. And so my concern is that what is it about us that we continue to look at ourselves as stepchildren and say that we cannot function like these other great cities? We talk about population loss and blight. Detroit had it bad, worse than anybody, but they didn't go in and reform the charter and kick out the comptroller and all this other stuff.
Right.
I mean, they tried, but they didn't need it. And now Detroit is having a comeback that St. Louis wish it could have. And so I'm just concerned that we are looking at structure as being the cause and effect of the present condition of the city. And the present condition of the city has more to do, to me, with people leaving, blight, crime, structural racism, and a lot of other things. But we're going to take a break. Get off my horse and let Darryl bring this thing back. And we're going to have former state representative Courtney Curtis join us, since he served on the county's charter commission. And at least they only did one thing, and that was good. But we'll be right back with more on Point Black.
And we're back with more Point Black. I was watching the clock on the wall. Actually, I was watching BJ, and he told us we can come on back. You remember now, if you want to give us any recommendations or suggestions on topics, on guests, whatever, you can always contact us on any social media platform by just typing in @Point Black STL. You can go to Facebook. You can go to X, formerly known as Twitter. You can go to YouTube, Instagram, all of those things. Just go to them and just @Point Black STL.
Hey, Darryl, I'm going to tell a lie.
Oh, my Lord. Another one?
I'm going to tell a lie. Everything that she's about to say, I knew.
That was his disclaimer. And you can always... Lord bless his heart. And you see how he did that, ladies and gentlemen. He just threw that right in the middle. It was supposed to be subliminal, but it wasn't. Or you can go to the iHeartRadio app, punch in Point Black, hit the talkback mic, and you can talk to Point Black. You were going to give us some clarification,
yes,
Dr. Nolan-Echols, as it relates to the 10 cities that my illustrious colleague, co-host, singled out. This form of government.
You didn't say correct me.
I didn't. I said clarification. I would never say you are one of my best friends.
I don't like being wrong, but I love being corrected.
You're like my mama. My mama said I may not always be right, but I'm never wrong. That's what my mama said. So, Chairwoman, give us some clarification on that.
So the clarification is I went through each of these cities, and then I added 10 more in my analysis and research of city charters and city structures. And it is in fact that these cities have a totally different structure than the city of St. Louis has. The elected offices alone by themselves is a difference in how we do governance and how these cities do governance. I pulled up an organizational chart for Chicago. If you put Chicago's organizational chart next to St. Louis City's organizational chart, those are two totally different infrastructure frameworks.
But what are the differences? I mean, the offices, they have a mayor, they have a comptroller, and they have a president of the council. But what is different?
So they do not. They have a city council, they have a mayor, they have a city clerk, a city treasurer, council committees, and then the office of the mayor. And none of those, they are all in alignment. They are not on a board of E&A.
Got you.
There is no managerial structure. And, those, I would say, very political means of how the city, St. Louis City, has governed itself, does not exist in Chicago, Philadelphia, Houston, all of these other places, governmental structures. Our governmental structure is antiquated.
I look at it, Pruitt, too, and I understand it. Even, President Megan Green initially, I think, was on board with this abolishment of the comptroller, but she's kind of backpedaled on that a bit too, and indicated that her concern, I think, like a lot of people's concern, how strong do we really need the mayor to be? Not how strong do we want the mayor to be, but how strong do we really need the mayor to be? How much power do we need to concentrate in the executive branch? I think that, throughout government, we've had a balance of power. We've had judicial has been separate, legislative has been separate, executive has been separate, and there's got to be some checks and balance. And former Representative Curtis, I mean, you participated in the charter activity in the county. Do you see a difference in the way in which it's going, and what are your thoughts?
So the Charter Commission can be used for whatever purpose the individuals that brought it to be for. There's a number of things that can be done. It is very political. I do see some differences. The question that I would have is, are they looking towards the future? And if they are, what policies do they have that takes that into account and illustrates that to the people so that they can get that feedback? If we're just looking at keeping things the same, which some people potentially are there for, then it's potentially a waste of time. At least in the St. Louis County Charter Commission, knowing that there was the possibility of a city-county merger, we at least had the discussion about trying to maintain the gains in African-American representation that we had in the county. But ultimately, because the county executives people stacked that board, it was a non-conversation. But the opportunity was there. So it's really a question of, are they seizing the opportunities that they have to make change for the city of St. Louis?
But Chairwoman, based upon what former Representative Curtis said, you've been quoted as saying maybe we need to address some things in phases and steps.
Yes.
Rather than trying to do everything all at once. And that way, to your point, and I'm gonna call you Representative Curtis anyway, out of respect for the fact that you held office. When you talk about, Chairwoman, phases and steps, it does speak to, like you said, your concern about, how far thinking is this? There are some things that we're going to be able to do right now, but you can't do all of it right now. How much of a problem has that been for you, Chairwoman? People who are trying to get some of this, I think, the craziest part, the heavier lifting, it seems like they're trying to get that done immediately, and it does. It speaks to why? What is your interest? Why are you trying to move so fast on this?
And I believe that's why I put forth the initiative recommendation for it to happen in phases over the next 5 years. Primarily because I do operations, and I understand that when you pluck things and when you move things, you adjust things and you impact structure, it does in fact have an impact on other areas around it. And I know that, for example, there's a city manager discussion, city administrator discussion. And once you put those things into play, when you put a city manager into play and they don't have the foundation to do what it is that they've been hired to do, we're paying somebody to be in an office, just like we're paying a lot of other people to be in an office, both St. Louis City and St. Louis County. So we have concerns that need time to assess and need time to be supported by the residents, need time to be researched and analyzed and effectively put into play. To do all of these things at one time, for example, putting all of the voting on a federal cycle, followed by removing elected officers that would traditionally be on those cycles, followed by the removal of departments or the consolidation of departments or the creation of departments. Those things don't happen from a business perspective at one time. Right. I do those things incrementally. So
I guess my main question in response to that is, the city says that it has a problem with hiring. It does not have enough people to fill the positions. So how are you judging or making a assessment of whether the department needs merging or other things like that when that department cannot perform the way it's structured simply based on it don't have enough personnel.
Well,
There's nothing wrong with
glad you brought that
There's
up.
nothing wrong with the structure, but I mean, if it takes 20 people to run this department and you only have 10, because you can't hire the other ones, does it mean you change the structure of the department, or you find a way to get 10 more people in
So
there?
let's discuss it transparently. The issue related to personnel, or HR as we call it in the city of St. Louis, is not that people don't want to work and people haven't applied and people aren't skilled, or that, as some people say, St. Louis doesn't have the talent for certain things. Those are not the issues. The issue is that structurally the city of St. Louis is not managed or overseen by HR as it should be. There are a lot of departments that don't function like they should because they are not accountable or responsible or held to the standard of traditional HR practices. So, for example, if you are hiring and you are looking to hire as a department head, typically HR is involved in that process. The city of St. Louis does not operate that way. So we have departments that are functioning like mini businesses within the city. And then we have what we call a holding company, which is the mayor's office.
Right.
It's not operating like a uniformed model. It's people are really doing their own hiring, deciding who they want to hire, determining if they feel like training and developing people to work for that department.
But let's be clear, that's at the department level, not at the director of personnel where that's happening.
Yeah,
That's
so
at the department head level.
Yes,
Okay,
and the
okay.
director of personnel cannot regulate or control those things or those matters.
Got it. Yeah, just want to make sure we're clear on that.
Right.
So what's the fix to that?
That's what I was going to ask.
So the fix to that is within this charter.
Okay.
The fix to the civil service matters, the personnel matters, they are woven in the legalese, the language of this charter, along with many other departmental facets across the city. They're woven in here. And they, I believe, are in here in order to stifle what we call progression into the future, what the next 10, 15, 20, 100 years look like. We are not operating as a modern city structure.
Got it.
Okay, listen, I know we're about to, I think we got to wrap it up now. We really appreciate it. And to all of the members on the commission, anybody that volunteers to do public service, I tip my hat to them. But as you said, we've got to also watch out for the agendas and the political issues. Listen, ladies and gentlemen, we've had Dr.
Hey, before you do that, and BJ, we're going to do a special, BJ.
What
we're
going to
work
special?
with BJ. We're going to get as many of the commissioners in one place at one time, and let's do something, even if we have to do it off-site,
Lord,
and put it out there to the public. We're going to help you get the public
I
involved.
support it. Thank you.
All right, listen, you heard it first right here on Point Black. You heard it first. Thank you, Courtney, for suggesting that to Pruitt. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for tuning in. We really appreciate Chairwoman Dr. Jazzmine Nolan-Echols. Thank you so much for the work you're doing. Sometimes I've watched it. It looks like sometimes you're herding cats, but yeah, I said it sometimes. But listen, we've got to get this right. It's not a quick fix. It's not an easy fix. We're glad that you're at the head. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for tuning in. And once again, we'll see you on the radio.